Hello everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. Today we have some pro-revenge stories and our first story of the day is by Jake XDX, How My Dad Conned a Man, Then Ruined His Conning Business. Years ago, shortly after I moved out, my dad decided he wanted to remodel his bathroom and hired a local contractor, who I will refer to as DB. To do it, that fixed a clogged sink for him once. From the start, my dad was extremely skeptical of the contractors and did not want to get scammed, so after they agreed on the price for labor, my dad asked him for an invoice for the cost of all the materials. He took said invoice to one of his coworkers whose brother-in-law was a plumber or in construction or something to look over the list of materials and see if the quote was fair. And right off the bat, DB was trying to do close to a 50% markup on the materials. So instead of paying DB's invoice, my dad just bought all the materials himself saying, he knows a guy who gives him amazing discounts. So DB doesn't get suspicious that my dad was onto his game. After 3 months, the bathroom is not close to being done, despite DB telling him it would take 2 months. My dad had to travel for work and would be gone a week, so he asked me to house sit / make sure DB shows up to work and does not steal crap. Right off the bat, DB tries to be all buddy-buddy with me, but I did not like the guy and just brushed him off asking how the bathroom was coming. Over the course of the week, DB tried to upsell me on a bunch of things he said needed to be done to finish the bathroom. Most of it was electrical work which he did not have a license for. My dad filled me in before he left about what was quoted in the labor, and there was no electrical work quoted. And I told him no, just stick to the original quote. Once my dad comes back, I filled him in on all the additional charges DB tried to tack on. He also did not show up for 3 days, saying he hurt his shoulder tripping over his cat. Then he tried to install the new ceiling light, which he was not asked to install because we had an electrician coming to install it. After a heated discussion between DB and I, he stopped installing the ceiling light and started laying tile, during which he broke a quarter of the tiles. After this debacle, my dad did some investigating and looked up DB's license and found out that not only was the license expired, it did not belong to DB. So my dad asked my brother and I to come over when he was going to confront DB about lying about his license. A very heated argument broke out when my dad refused to let DB enter the house to collect his tools and said we would bring the tools out to him. DB then threatened to press charges against me for assault when I accidentally brushed his shoulder when I was passing him in the hallway, and I refused to apologize. After the cops showed up, DB quickly tried to play the victim, but the cops told DB to collect his tools and leave. The bathroom was still unfinished, but my dad did not have to pay DB for his 3 months of labor and use that money to hire real contractors to finish the bathroom. It only took them a week and a half to finish. After this, my dad contacted the local news to tell them about DB being a con man. A few months later, the news did an investigation story about him and they found other people DB scammed, where DB would start to work on their bathroom, but once he got paid, he would cut and run, leaving the bathroom unfinished and stealing all the materials. The news then set up a sting for DB and exposed him for being a con man, and he was arrested not long after the news story aired. Considering in the situation you did get your money back, but you did lose 3 months of wasted time, would this be somebody that you personally would try and figure out how to shut down? Or would you let it go and just focus on your bathroom, knowing that you're not technically out any money, just time? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by The System Sucked. Oh my god, we're so sorry we blocked your doorway. Now go get your earmuffs. I've had a long, respectable career in game development. A couple of years ago, I've abandoned it for a cushy corporate job, and now spend most of my days missing game dev. This story takes place about 10 years ago at the apex of my career. I was the lead on a AAA project. Our parent company, for which video games was just one of many lines of business, was going through changes. We had to move offices 3 times in 1 year. Second of the 3 moves, always intended to be temporary, put us into the basement of an older building long occupied by satellite departments not involved with development. The basement we were given had been empty for years, save for the most distant office. You entered the basement through a dimly lit staircase. Then, after you snaked through a horror movie-like maze of corridors and interconnected small rooms, you'd eventually arrive at the farthest room of all. A golden plaque was on the door. Trademark Compliance Department. Literally no one I knew was ever aware of trademark compliance, even though trademarks were a pretty important part of everything we did. The department consisted of a single elderly trademark attorney and his fresh-faced college grad assistant slash paralegal slash whatever. The lawyer flipped his freaking crap when he learned people were moving into his basement. For a couple of weeks, he tried desperately to prevent the move, getting all the way to the CEO. The tiny, leathery lawyer amazed everyone with his deep, booming voice that would climb and climb and climb in pitch as he yelled and screamed and threatened. So, all his efforts being for naught, our stuff was moved into the basement over one weekend. We spent the following Monday and Tuesday dealing with all sorts of setup woes, electrical outlets, network connections, breathable air. On Wednesday, two quiet 2D artists came into their L-shaped room, the one with the fancy door to trademark compliance, and found that all their stuff, chairs, desks, computers, everything, was pushed into the far corner. A walkway of caution tape was set up leading to the compliance door. While we were trying to figure out what the heck happened, as close to the company's CEO as it gets, walked into our lowly basement trailed by the beaming lawyer. Apparently, our desks blocked his door. He even had pictures. The demigod hadn't seen them prior to walking down. Once he saw dozens and dozens of close-ups of the desk corner, the VP's face grew less certain. Our desk was blocking his doorway by less than an inch on the side with the hinges. The door opened away from the desk. I'm guessing even when opened at 90 degrees, the edge of the door was about as wide as the protruding part of the desk. In other words, it was technically blocking the doorway, but no more so than the door itself. Non-committal as always, the demigod instructed us to make sure all pathways were clear at all times, and that he expected this would be the last time he had to get involved. I'm generally a people pleaser. I can even maybe sympathize with an old guy freaking out when a gaggle of man-children in ironic t-shirts wreck his long-established way of life. I figured it was time to modify the seating chart. 2 people would be a pretty tight fit for that weird room, and I also didn't want my quiet flower child artists anywhere near that loon. I apologized to the lawyer and told him I was moving 2 people out and moving just 1 person in, making sure it was as uncluttered as possible. I had 2 potential candidates in mind, and while leaning strongly towards one, I considered a milder option in the case the lawyer turned out to be an alright guy after all. The lawyer answered my apology with a triumphant, "Serves you right," and "That's what you get for messing with adults," and "Welcome to the real world," and "This is far from over." He then ordered me to wait right here and came out with a tape measure. We snaked through his entire path from the staircase to his office, measuring clearance from desks and chairs and people's items, and the lawyer booped desks and monitors and garbage cans and pushed people sitting in their chairs as if they were garbage cans. He crawled on the floor and marked out no man's land in chalk. No one was ever allowed to block his pathway, or he'd have everyone's jobs. Once all the lines were drawn and the lawyer retreated to his fortress of smugness, I knew our slightly unhinged physics programmer with his anime posters and the loud clink of his mechanical keyboard would not be moving to the room after all. My revenge was going pro. Now, the issue of sound was discussed more than any other as we were planning the temporary move. Our sound designer had to listen to all sorts of sounds at full volume on different types of speakers, not just on his headphones. If sound was designed on headphones and you played it on surround speakers, you'd sense it. Our old office had a professionally soundproofed room. Even then, that was a pretty unpleasant thing. Huge sounds could not be heard but could be felt. Like an inaudible earthquake, it struck you with primal dread. So we discussed this on and on. I wanted a soundproof room. Management wanted headphones. We eventually agreed on a compromise. We'd just have to accept screams and explosions on speakers while we were in the basement. This decision had also been made and approved by the same VP about a month before the walkway in chalk incident. You already see where I'm going with this. We made the walkway semi-permanent with the construction tape. I took pictures and sent an update email to everyone reporting that A, we pledged to keep all pathways clear at all times, and B, the offending room would have the 2 girls move out and only have the sound designer move in. The VP replied with, "Thank you, that's great." See how the email listed the sound designer in an offhand way? This was not my first rodeo. We moved the sound designer and all his equipment into the room. The next morning, explosions started, then stopped. High-pitched screams in the distance, footsteps, my door flew open, and the lawyer ran in screaming, "What the freak?" He dragged me across the street to the VP's office. VP was not there. The lawyer screamed and jumped and stomped his little feet, left voicemails, then retreated to write an email to the VP. With the CC list possibly going all the way up to President Obama and the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. I quickly replied that 1. Sound design issues had been extensively discussed and were deemed a necessary evil. 2. I notified everyone before the fact the sound designer was moving to that particular room. And 3. If I had to keep moving people around every day, I wouldn't be able to hit my milestones. VP replied the next morning saying, "He's right about milestones, besides it's temporary anyway." And so, for the next 7 months, the compliance department was subjected to 8 hours a day of non-stop explosions, gunfire, screams, grunts, engine roar, and wet thuds. Once released, our game sound was singled out for praise in multiple reviews. I put the lawyer's name somewhere in the midst of the thank you section in the credits. I don't know why, but every time this lawyer was described more and more, I kept picturing Lord Farquaad coming to mind. Except it would be like if Lord Farquaad got angrier and angrier, and as they got angrier and angrier, their pitch got higher and higher and higher. It's a great image. This next story is by Gluten-Free Churro. Insult my girlfriend? Have fun being awake. This is not my story, but my brother's. He was working in a certain popular coffee chain called something similar to $Sun at the time. All fake names. My brother John was dating this girl, now broken up, Joan at the time. Joan went to visit John late one evening while he was on shift. They were having a conversation and jokingly arguing with each other, having general couple banter as you do, and then she left to go to the bathroom. There was a businessman in line behind her. He was bald and he had an important air about him. This is the best I can remember the description my brother gave. Businessman will be referred to as Dougie Douche or DD. This is the gist of what was said, as I was not there and it was a few years ago. "I would dump her if I were you. No woman should disrespect her man like that." John says, "What?" "My wife would never talk to me that way. She listens to everything I tell her. She's submissive just like she should be. You should get yourself a submissive woman. What you've got there is a witch." John says, "Okay." Unfortunately, he can't argue with this man while he's at work. "What did you want to order?" "A triple shot decaf latte." Then he continues on about how submissive his wife is and how that's all women should be, as well as dissing John's girlfriend a bit more. Joan eventually comes out of the bathroom and exchanged goodbyes with John. DD is quiet for this exchange. He makes another sexist comment to John about his girlfriend after Joan leaves. Well, dear readers, my brother is very argumentative and outspoken in nature. And he is very much against any kind of sexism, especially sexism directed at his loved ones. And since he couldn't be vocal about just how wrong and disgusting this guy was, he pulled regular espresso instead of decaf. Before y'all get in the comments about medical reasons for decaf, John was already chewed out about it by my family when he told this story to us, and handed the coffee to the douche businessman with a smile. This whole interaction took place at about 10 to 11 p.m. on a weekday, so this man was going to be up for a while. I think maybe it would have been funny in that moment to try to embarrass the businessman by going, "Oh, while my girlfriend's here, did you want to kind of mention what you were talking about?" And try and force him in that moment to have to admit to his sexist ways right there in front of her. See if he doubles down on it right there to her face. Judging by his silence, I bet he wouldn't have. And our final story of the day is by Mistress Ridicule, Secret Decaf. I worked for a company with an owner who let her daughter get away with anything. The daughter was my manager and she would shriek at me so loud you could hear it from the parking lot. That's not an exaggeration. People would come in and ask what M was mad about because they heard her going off as they locked their cars. But she also made me get her coffee. Venti sugar-free vanilla latte with soy milk. I'd go and ask the barista to make it decaf but not market. They always made me a secret decaf for her. It's kind of shady not getting exactly what they ordered, but I'm gonna be real, they need the decaf. There's no way they need more energy based off of what OP is describing them as. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which story and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like, and if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. No matter what you do, whether it's just viewing the video, liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, I appreciate the heck out of it. Every little thing that you do helps the channel grow that much more, and I can't thank you enough for it. So until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll be right here next time on the Storytime channel.